I'm talking with Mike Hahn of Lancaster. In addition to running Pioneer Ag in Lancaster, he and his wife also farm. Mike, first off, how many acres of corn and soybeans do you have this year?
We run, my son and I run just shy of 300 acres of corn, 275 acres of beans, and 150 acres of hay.
Well, what we want to talk about today is the corn crop, because with the heat and everything, you actually went out into the fields and grabbed some ears, and I'm going to focus on the ears of corn you picked, and tell us when you actually did this and what did you find. Tell us the process you went through.
Well, about 2-3 weeks ago I went out into the field right by my house on the home farm, where I always considered to be some of my best ground. We had a lot of dairy manure for a lot of years, and I walked into the field and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I was hoping it was just one single spot in the field. And I came out of there almost sick to my stomach when I saw what I had. And last Friday, it had been about 2 weeks later, I went out and went into a different spot in that field. And this is what I found.
Describe for us, this is a 12-row planter, right?
Yeah, we have a 12-row planter. And this was one pass, so it was all planted at the same minute, you know, and the same variety. I walked in there and to see if in a different spot, to see if anything was like what I had seen 2 weeks prior. And this is what I found, and I came out of there thinking, what the heck am I going to do? And I thought, well, nobody's going to believe this. So I started grabbing ears, and this first one is from the outside row. And I was driving by that field thinking, boy, this corn looks good for what we went through. And if all you do is drive by, you need to get a little dirt on your boots and take a look. But this is the outside row. This was 4 rows in. This was 6 rows in. This one was 8 rows in. This is 10, and this is 12 rows in. And the middle of the field doesn't have an ear on it. But in this 4th row, there's a lot of this in it. In the 4th row, there's a lot of these. In the 6th row, there's a lot of these. In the 8th row, there's a lot of these in this row. And you get to the middle of the field, you don't have much of a stalk even. It's about big around as your finger.
Well, Mike, tell us, obviously on the outside we had temperatures over 100 degrees, so what did we have in the middle of the field then? No wonder the corn looks the way it does, and the fact that you didn't even get ears on some of your stalks.
Yeah, well, I never measured moisture or temperature, but when we had over 100 for a week solid on the outside, I've heard reports of it being 120 to 140 on the inside of the field, and if it only gets down to 80 or 90 degrees at night, it just does not have a chance to cool off, and it just cooks it. Now these that were out in the 10 and 12th row, it looks like that's where the heat was, and we did get 2/10 of an inch of rain back, I don't know, a month ago, and it looks like it tried to do something after the rain, but it just ran out of steam. There just wasn't enough water.
What's your projected yields based on what you see here?
Pathetic. I did a bunch of, Sunday I walked all my fields to see which ones would be worth the fuel to go through with the combine. Now I will admit, this is the worst field I've found. There's some fields where half the field is like this, or a little better than that, and half the field doesn't have an ear on it. I started doing plant counts. We planted at 34,000, and what we found was there was only 25 to 27,000 that even had an ear on them in the good stuff, and where you got the light soil, there wasn't an ear on any of it. So it's basically going to be a half a crop. I pulled some ears off that I did kernel counts, and it looked like we were going to have 160 bushel in some places in the field, and some places the field will be 0. In fact, there'll be a lot of places where the combine will read 0. So if it's half and half, that's an 80 bushel yield, which I think is going to be good this year. If I have a lot of this stuff, well, that's going to get chopped for the beef cows. They don't need that much corn in the corn silage anyway.
All right, Mike Hahn, farms north of Lancaster. I'm Bob Mittendorf on WGLR.